My name is Josh Hudnall, and I'm the founder of the Carpenter Shed.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Dodson. I'm one of the partners here at the Carpenter Shed, and I'm the clinical director.
My name's Kyle Smith. I'm one of the partners and the CEO for the Carpenter Shed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have, the three of us have different backgrounds, all of which kind of have their own struggles. Spent a lot of years trying to figure out how to do life well, how to become men of substance and character. And as we looked around and tried to find ways to help young men become men of substance and character, we found that the things that we needed weren't out there. A lot of what happens with the typical inpatient facility is pathologizing. People think kids are broken, they need a diagnosis, they need medication, and that's just not what we believe. We believe that young men need guidance. They're often just lost, and we want to help give them that guidance and give them the tools they need to become the men that God created them to be.
It's a pretty unique experience that we offer, and I don't really think we sit down and just like, let's just, dream this crazy idea up. It's a lot of what we've been through in our own lives. I think back, when I first met my father-in-law, who, has mentored so many people, throughout his lifetime, just being that young boy that attached my hip to him and just kind of followed what he did, what a man does, but it's become a lost language. I know you've talked about this before, what we actually do isn't groundbreaking, right, but it's not being done. And, being dads ourselves, raising boys, just showing a young man what it looks like to be a man, mentoring them, building that relationship, speaking hard truth, setting that pace so that they know what that actually looks like in their own life. Because, for a lot of these young boys, all they have is a phone that's really treading the way, blazing the way for a young boy to become a man. That's not a good influence.
Yeah, and I feel like if we think about it, like kind of the point that you said, it's like a lot of this comes out of like men speaking into our lives and what God's done, fathering us and maturing us as men in order to really give something back that is meaningful.
Right. When the reality is, we get a lot of parents that come in and they have a lot of guilt and shame over, what have I done wrong? Like what's gone astray? Like how have I messed my kid up? And the reality is we live in a culture that's super broken.
That's right.
And there's not a good narrative for what it means to be a good man or woman for that matter. And so a lot of these kids have great families and they're just contending against something that is very hard to overcome in isolation. And part of what we're doing is giving them a story about who they can be and what they're capable of that the world just doesn't offer them anymore.
Yeah, it's almost, the cultural norm to not have an aim or to not have a direction and a meaning and a purpose. It's just do what you want, what feels good in the moment.
Right. Aims are passé. Yeah, it's to be anything but, have a detached sense of irony is considered uncool, and the reality is detached sense of irony will sink you. You have to have a sense of earnestness and purpose in life for life to be anything of substance.
I always think about, something you bring up a lot, World War II, as 15 to 16-year-old kids, or men really back in those days, that, stormed the beaches of Normandy. And, when I ask that question to people today, it's like, there's no way. But what that really tells us is it's there. If you spend time, mentoring and developing that kid, that ability, and we see it all the time at the Shed. We get these 16, 17-year-old kids that all of a sudden, can hold a job. They can buy a vehicle, they finish their GEDs, get driver's license. And I love this, thought when, a young man does good, he feels good. And that's so true, man. When these boys are meant to have wins in their life, to conquer, to grow up, to be strong. That's embedded in us, and it just needs to be called forward. And that's something that we really try to do at the Shed.
Yeah, and I would say, if you think about the men you look up to or we look up to, every one of them knows who they are, knows where they're going, and has a strong sense of like helping others become a part of that.
Yeah, and that's one of the countercultural pieces of what we do. There's this idea floating around that everyone should have self-esteem, and people try to kind of inflate themselves into this place of feeling good about themselves, and it doesn't work. It's hollow and shallow. The reason to esteem yourself well is because you have become someone you can actually be proud of because of what you've done and who you are. The good news is that's in everybody. It's in every young man, that capacity to choose a noble path and walk it out in a way that has integrity and dignity.
You know, it reminds me of what we tell those guys all the time. You are becoming something. You are in the process of becoming. I mean, as men, we're still in the process of becoming. And these young boys that come here, like, you know, that's really, we give them an idea of you are becoming something. Like, you get to decide what that is. And you have to take ownership of what it looks like.
Well, a lot of these families, though, where the disconnect is, you know, I'm scared my son's gonna get hurt, right? I mean, or lose their life, or whatever. You know, we imagine the worst case scenario, but you always, you know, get that idea of like climbing a tree. You know, if we keep a kid from climbing a tree, yeah, we protect them, but he never gains that ability to be strong, to be capable of doing great things. You know, we have to give them that space to make mistakes, to have, you know, decide for themselves who they're going to be. You know, there's choices with that, and there's always going to be consequences.
Yep.